Welcome to the KZGN News. Today we'll bring you news about Kate's Law, news from Sacramento about UAVs, today's KZGN Talking Points editorial, and much more.
From the Rademacher Hills to Bee Mountain and the mighty Sierras, Ridgecrest to Inyokern and China Lake, this is your news for the Indian Wells Valley with the KZGN News crew.
Hello, I'm Tom Wicknick. Thanks for joining us for the news affecting Ridgecrest and the Indian Wells Valley. Tuesday we reported on the effort to get Kate's Law passed. This is in response to the senseless killing of Kate by an illegal alien felon who was in the country after being deported 5 times, each time to come back and take up living in a sanctuary city. The father of a San Francisco woman who was gunned down by an undocumented immigrant asked Congress Tuesday to fix legal loopholes that kept his daughter's alleged killer on the street. Jim Steino called on lawmakers to discuss changing immigration laws during an emotional Senate Judiciary Committee hearing after the July 1st murder of his daughter. Kate Steino, 32, was shot as she walked on Pier 14 with her dad. Lopez Sanchez had previously been convicted of 7 felonies and deported back to Mexico 5 times. Yet, Lopez Sanchez had been released from a San Francisco jail just months earlier after drug charges were dropped. San Francisco sanctuary laws dictate that undocumented immigrants cannot be held without a warrant. Unfortunately, due to unjointed laws and basic incompetence of the government, the U.S. has suffered a self-inflicted wound in the murder of our daughter, Jim Steino said in his testimony. The hearing comes as the House is taking up a bill proposing to block federal funding for jurisdictions that resist turning over legal immigrants. It was noted that more than 66,000 undocumented immigrants, including people convicted of violent crimes, were released by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement between 2013 and 2014. And according to ICE statistics, 123 people have been killed by people in the country illegally who faced deportation between 2010 and 2014. It's unbelievable to see that so many innocent Americans have been killed by undocumented immigrants in recent years, Steino said. Steino promoted Kate's Law, which would give mandatory jail time to convicted felons who return to the U.S. illegally after deportation. I feel strongly that some legislation should be enacted to take these undocumented felon immigrants off our streets, he told lawmakers. If Kate's Law saves one daughter, one son, a mother, a father, Kate's death won't be in vain. Well, we'll see what Washington does. In news from Sacramento, responding to continued drone interference in fighting wildfires, Senator Ted Gaines today announced plans to introduce legislation to help protect emergency responders engaged in their life-saving work. Senate Bill 168, co-authored by Assemblyman Mike Gatto, grants immunity to any emergency responder who damages an unmanned aircraft in the course of firefighting, air ambulance, or search and rescue operations. This is maddening, and I can't believe that hobby drones are risking people's lives to get videos on YouTube. Just this weekend in the North Fire, cars were torched on the freeways because drones made aerial firefighting efforts impossible. This bill will help make sure the skies are clear of drones and that the brave men and women fighting these fires can do their job protecting the public without worrying about frivolous lawsuits, said Gaines. Drone operators are risking lives when they fly over an emergency station. Just because you have access to an expensive toy that can fly in dangerous area doesn't mean you should do it, said Assemblyman Gatto, chair of the Assembly Committee on Privacy and Consumer Protection. The legislation needs to act swiftly to make sure we send a signal that our society won't put up with this nonsense after seeing drone operators once again interrupt firefighting efforts in the Cajon Pass. Gaines and Gatto are also teaming on Senate Bill 167, which increases fines and introduces the possibility of jail time for drone use that interferes with firefighting efforts. That legislation stems from additional alarming reports of private unauthorized drones causing mission-critical tanker aircraft to be grounded during firefighting operations, putting pilots, firefighters, civilians, and property at unnecessary risk. Senate Bill 168 is a companion to that effort. Senate Bill 168 is intended to indemnify emergency personnel in the event that their efforts damage an unmanned aircraft. It is the author's hope and intent that the advent of effective jamming technology could keep drones away from emergency response areas and flight paths, and that warnings and public education efforts could ensure that the safest least damaging methods for avoiding or disabling unauthorized drones will be the primary methods used in these crises. Gaines believes drones hold great promise for wildfire suppression and other emergency services when used properly by the responding agencies, but does not want rogue drones to interfere with the most effective response to time-sensitive crises. Private drones don't belong around these emergencies. That is the first message I want to get out, said Senator Gaines. But if one gets damaged or destroyed because it's in the way, then that can't lead to financial penalty for the people trying to save lives and property. It's unfortunate, but that's all that it is. People can replace drones, but we can't replace a life when our rescuers are risking their own lives to protect us. I want them thinking about safety, not liability. The California Highway Patrol are focused on distracted driving. Enhancing public safety on our highway is a major concern for the California Highway Patrol. Through public awareness and focused enforcement efforts, the CHP hopes to increase the safety of the motoring public. The Mojave Area CHP office will be conducting saturation enforcement on July 24, 2015 in the eastern portion of Kern County. The increased enforcement aims to help drivers recognize the presence of law enforcement and reduce the number of traffic collisions and vehicle code violations. Distracted driving affects everyone on the road, states Mojave CHP Commander Lieutenant Julian Irigoyen. When someone is texting or talking on their cell phone, their eyes are off the road and their hands are off the wheel, and their attention is not on driving. The CHP urges drivers to minimize distractions, slow down, and drive safely. The mission of the California Highway Patrol is to provide the highest level of safety, service, and security to the people of California. Stay with us for today's KZGN Talking Points editorial when we come back. Welcome back. Now it's time for the 60-second KZGN News Talking Points editorial. Here's today's topic. Should active duty military people be armed at the job sites? But first, some comments about the last editorial titled, Should Case Law Be Passed? It is a law started by Bill O'Reilly of Fox News in the aftermath of the senseless killing of Kate Steinle by an illegal alien felon who had been previously deported 5 times. O'Reilly has started a movement to pass case law. This law would require any illegal alien felon that had been previously deported and re-enters into the U.S. illegally and gets caught to be sentenced to a minimum of 5 years in jail and again be deported. So that's the summary of the proposed case law. Every person I have talked to about this thinks the law is a good idea. People have expressed anger that the feds are not doing enough to protect us from criminals. So we'll see if Washington does their job. Now on to today's editorial topic, should active duty military people be armed at their job sites? In the aftermath of yet another act of terrorism against our military members on American soil, there is discussion about the federal ban for military to carry a firearm. I hear some states are already reacting to the latest shooting and have made policy that allow military in uniform to carry a gun if they want to. They are not required to, though. However, this state decision only affects state guard units, not active duty on the federal level. The federal law prohibits military to carry any gun unless they are in a war zone or are ordered to do so for national defense, like when they are called to suppress a riot. And we heard that DOD is even thinking about allowing soldiers to not wear their uniform and wear civilian clothes. Are you kidding me? Do they really think the last gunman thought about the uniform when he chose a recruiting station as his target? Anyone in or around that target was in harm's way. Shooting from a car in the parking lot into a storefront window had no emphasis on who in there was wearing a uniform. The recruiting station was the target. What do you think? Here are our trained military personnel that with a stroke of the President's pen could be ordered to go to war, carry a gun, and defend our nation. Yet, supposedly, when they are stateside, they have no need to defend themselves. Well, now we know that is not true. We have extensive intelligence that ISIS and Al-Qaeda are using the internet to recruit and encourage attacks by local people against our military soldiers on home soil. The FBI and Homeland Security have both admitted that their biggest fear is attacks by people already here on our soil. They say there is no way they can detect and deter every attack by people already in the country, especially when it involves U.S. citizens. I do not feel we should allow our military to be targets unable to defend themselves. Just as regular Americans, we have a right to defend ourselves with a gun. So do they. And in most states, Common citizens can get a license to carry a concealed weapon to defend themselves. So if the average American has that option, then the military members should too. Just because they're in the military, they don't lose their rights under the Constitution, specifically the Second Amendment. It applies to all citizens. It doesn't say just non-military citizens. It says all citizens. The Fed should immediately rescind the stateside ban on weapons. I don't advocate that soldiers be ordered to carry, only that they be allowed to make the choice on their own. If they don't want to carry, no problem. But in the same tone, if they do want to carry, no problem. Their choice. I know when I believe that I'm going somewhere where my life or my family's life might be in danger, I carry and will be able to defend myself. And here we have our finest walking around unable to defend themselves when they are being specifically targeted by terrorists via the internet. The threat is real. Last week's attack was not the first, and it won't be the last. I have to bet there are more individuals and even small groups conspiring their next attack, even as I write this editorial. The FBI says they cannot stop them all, and that's the truth. Local enforcement can't stop them all either. Should soldiers have rules of when they can use a gun if they carry? Sure, but they should be able to carry. How many times have we heard of terror attacks on just citizen targets? How about a restaurant? I know that if I was sitting in a restaurant and I had a soldier sitting next to me wearing a gun, I would feel much safer. So, Mr. President, what are you going to do? Your real quick use of the executive orders to protect illegal immigrants and release criminals from prison, how about using that authority to allow our soldiers the means to protect themselves? In conclusion, our soldiers have the same rights under the Constitution as we do. If they want to carry, open or concealed, they should be allowed to, and allowed to now. I'm Tom Whitnick, and that's what I think. I'd like to know what you think. If you have any comments about this editorial or would like to discuss or recommend a topic, I'd like to hear from you. Please email them to info@kzgn.net. Now stay tuned for weather and sports after the break. Thanks for staying with us. Let's go to Keith for the weather.
Thank you, Tom. Not much in our forecast today. We're still going to be just below the 100-degree mark. But before I get to our forecast, the National Weather Service is forecasting a risk of severe thunderstorms across parts of the northern plains and upper Midwest. From northern South Dakota across much of North Dakota and into western Minnesota, large hail, damaging winds will be the main threats. Temperatures across the nation: North Carolina came in 86, Georgia 80, Colorado 78 degrees, New Mexico 75, and Los Angeles at 69. For our forecast here in the IWV, tonight will be clear with a low around 70, south wind 10 to 15 miles per hour with gusts as high as 20. Friday will be sunny with a high near 98, south-southwest wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. Friday night will be clear with a low around 70, south wind 10 to 15 miles per hour. Saturday will be sunny with a high near 98, south wind 5 miles per hour. Saturday night, clear with a low around 69, west-southwest wind 10 miles per hour with gusts as high as 15. And on Sunday, it will be sunny with a high near 99, south wind 10 miles per hour with gusts as high as 15. And that is a look at your forecast for the IWV. Now back to Tom and the rest of your KZGN News.
Thanks, Keith. Let's see Tom Heck with sports.
And a very pleasant Thursday afternoon to everybody. The Dodgers back on the winning track. They defeat Atlanta on Wednesday evening 3-1. They lose, though, 2 of 3 to the Braves. Mike Bolsinger gets the win, his 4th win of the year against 3 losses. Kenley Jensen gets the save. The Dodgers and the Mets are playing tonight in New York. They'll play a 4-game series against the New York Mets. The Mets, by the way, only 3 games out of first place behind the Nationals. The Dodgers have a 3-game lead over the Giants. Giants starting to play better again. They've been up and down all season long, the Giants have. All right, Houston tries to stay close to the Angels, still 2.5 back as they defeat Boston in Houston. They've won the first 2 games. The Red Sox really struggling. They have now lost 7 games in a row. They were swept 4 games over the weekend here in Anaheim. The Reds and Cubs split a day-night doubleheader. Reds won the first game. Cubbies took the second game. Texas beats Colorado. The Rangers in 3rd place in the West. They're trying to get to the 500 mark. They're 8.5 behind the Angels. They are still 5 games under 500. Really, the only team I kind of give a chance to at this point of trying to play catch up with the Angels would be the Rangers. The A's playing better, but they're still 11.5 games out right now. Detroit beat Seattle. The Mariners just not having a good season whatsoever. They've underachieved. St. Louis over the White Sox. The Cardinals 6 games over the Pirates for the lead in the Central. The Pirates lost to Kansas City. Kansas City is now 21 games over 500. Their best seasons to 1989. All right, Toronto and Oakland battling it out. The A's come up with a win there. New York beats Baltimore 4-3. They now have a 6-game lead over the Orioles in the East. Washington beat the Mets today. Washington really struggling some against some of the Eastern teams, but they've done well the last 2 games against the Mets. They're still in first place, 3 games over the Mets. Philadelphia beats Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay now 1 game under 500. Tampa Bay just cannot keep any kind of winning streak sustained. They were at one time 4 games over 500. Then they went to 5 games under 500. They have just been up and down like a teeter-totter. And as mentioned, Kansas City a winner tonight. Boy, the Royals, you look for them to win the Central. They've got a 7-game lead over the Twins. Angels have won 8 of 10 games. All right, Bill Simmons, a longtime ESPN radio and TV host, has signed a contract with the HBO. Simmons was released a couple weeks ago from ESPN. They're not going to renew his contract, so he just decided to leave early and not wait till the contract ended. And the free agency getting a little bit weird out there, if not already bizarre. The Dallas Mavericks have not had a good offseason when it comes to free agents. First, they lost DeAndre Jordan. They offered DeAndre Jordan $80 million, a leading rebounder in all of basketball, the Clippers star, 7-foot power center, and he turned it down because the Clippers came in and offered him $88 million after he had committed to the owner, Mark Cuban. And then Richard Jefferson, who played for Dallas last year, he had committed to play again, said he would, then backed out, and he's going to play for Cleveland, the team that was the co-runner-up in the NBA this year. So, Richard Jefferson is out. They lose DeAndre Jordan. Now, at least Mark Cuban said that Jefferson had some class. He at least called him. Jordan didn't even make a phone call to Mark Cuban. I guess it was through a tweet or a text that he got the message that Jordan had changed his mind and not going to play for Mark Cuban and the Dallas Mavericks. All right. Also want to mention that the Pelicans have signed free agent Kendrick Perkins. That'll beef up their power forward position. Josh Smith has officially signed with the Clippers. You remember Josh Smith last year played for Houston. He helped Houston defeat the Clippers in the NBA playoffs. So Clippers glad to have him. Where the Clippers are going to be loaded. They also picked up Paul Pierce. Pierce left the Washington Wizards and now is going to be on the Clippers. Boy, they're going to have a lot of depth on that team this year. Look out for them. All right, that's your sports for this Thursday afternoon. I'm Tom Heck for KZGN.
So that's the news for today. All of us at KZGN-TV know you have a choice in what you watch for your news. We all thank you for choosing KZGN-TV, Ridgecrest's only locally owned community TV station. Coming up next, Ridgecrest Talk. Now check out this video science lesson on just how big Earth is.